On mic today, we have JK Woodward, the artist behind quite a few of my recent favorites from IDW. How you doing today?
Good to be here.
Oh, glad to have you. Glad to have you. I'm sincerely meaning that. Your style is it's really exciting to me. And IDW has given you the chance to play with all my favorite toys, so I'm kind of jealous of you in that regard.
It can be a fun job, I'll tell you.
I bet it can. I bet it can.
What are your favorites? When you say your favorites, I'm interviewing you now.
Okay, well, no. See, the idea is just to have a good conversation. I love your work on the Trek. When we were on the cruise together, you did a lot of the. I saw you do the Klingons, the Discovery style Klingons.
Yeah.
And that was just getting a chance to see those. Because what I love about your style is it almost merges the difference between watching the show and reading the comic. You wind up in this little halfway area there because your style is so expressive.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's always important to me, especially when we're doing something like City on the Edge of Forever, with the original series where we wanted to make it feel like an episode as much as possible. The thing is, with comics, you can do a little more, and the temptation is always there to do something a little more. But I try to reel that in so it feels like a TV episode, so it feels like an occasion. That was also important with the Mirror Universe of Next Generation. I wanted it to feel like we were doing a Mirror Universe episode. Like if that could have been done budget-wise,
Yeah, and it's it was always kind of like stuck out as a sore thumb that the Next Gen never had its own Mirror Universe episode when every other series really tried it. And,
I probably said this on the cruise, but yesterday's Enterprise was their Mirror Universe. They didn't go all in. They didn't want to.
Yeah.
It did probably, and it's probably a smart move because it really didn't fit in with the theme of the show, I think.
No.
If you had like ridiculous space pirates, it just wouldn't fit with what Next Generation was doing, which was really kind of a little more reeled in, mature show. Not suggesting that TOS isn't mature, but I'm saying they just never went that far in. They never went quite that crazy. Not after the third season, anyways.
Certainly not. No, with Next Gen, they made a lot of deliberate choices to say, what would TOS do? We have to not do that. And that was almost their mantra for a long time.
Well, except, again, for the first two seasons where they were just trying to redo. I mean, there were a couple episodes first season,
Naked Now?
Yeah, what was the horrible one? Matter of Honor? That was not the third season one. Code of Honor. Yeah, I always mix up the two. Where you could tell it was going for the TOS feel, and it didn't work, and it was horribly racist, and it was just we try to forget it existed. And of course, there was the Naked Time and the Naked Now, which was directly correlated. They didn't even hide that; they kind of went right in for it. But I feel like generally after 3, the actors were finding their characters, and even defining their characters. And it just became a better show. It became better when they decided not to try to be TOS.
It became the show we actually remember.
Yeah, exactly.
So I mean, when you have a background in rock music, actually, that was actually your original ambition in life.
Sort of yes and sort of no. That was more tongue in cheek in my bio. A friend wrote it for me, and that's kind of how he saw it. Me, I was just playing around in high school. I was in a band, but I was never a serious musician. In fact, I could barely play guitar even back then, and I can't play at all now. It's been so long. So I don't know if I ever took that really seriously, or if that was just teenage boy trying to get girls.
Sure.
And comic artist wasn't doing it.
No, it doesn't work. Trust me, I tried.
No.
But I just found it so interesting that would be used to describe you, because, when I saw you up there on stage doing the live drawing, you had a very contemplative methodology. You had easy to have a conversation with the crowd, talking about what you were doing. You were much more Bob Ross than Axl Rose on stage. And I'm hoping that's a compliment.
Yes, it is.
Okay, it was intended as such, but you don't know how that's going to fly.
Yeah. Yeah, my feeling when I'm on the cruise and doing those on stage shows, which I don't do that often. At cons, we usually have a panel where we're not really interacting with the audience till the very end. So it's for me, it's just nice to have a conversation, and that's what I did. I did it more for myself, but I figured watching somebody paint can get pretty boring. Let's face it. I mean, you want to see the end product and you like to see how it's done, but 9/10 of it is just like, let's get this over with, So, for me, I think just talking to the audience was not just fun for me, but it made it a little bit better. And a conversational tone is better than me trying to be a performer, which I'm not.
So what was your collaboration with Peter David like?
It was a lot of fun. When that started, I was new in comics. We were working together on a book called Fallen Angel, which had been at DC with a different artist and had got canceled. And this was when I first started. I think it was like 2004, was the first time we worked together. And I ended up working with him for 3 years on this title before we ever worked anything with Star Trek. And it was strange because I was a fan, so I'm coming at this not from a professional colleague. I'm totally green, and I've been a fan of his for his work in the '90s. But it turned out to be a great working relationship, and we ended up becoming friends. And I guess 3 years will do that. You either become enemies or you become friends. But it became a lot more fun, and it was though I worked off full scripts, there was a lot of collaboration. I remember being on the phone with him a lot because I like to do that with ideas. So go ahead.
I could see him being a guy who's very open to at least ideas and hashing stuff out. That
most certainly, he was always open to ideas. In fact, I think he was one that suggested that if you got any thoughts, just let me know. But when he does have a reason for doing something, he has a reason for doing it, and he'll always let you know too. Because if, for instance, if there's a lamp on panel 3, page 2 of a script, it's going to come into play probably page 10, panel 5. There's always any particular thought he has. I learn not to question because I know it's always going to come into play later, even if it's a few issues later. So I kind of trust his judgment. But whenever I have any kind of creative thoughts, he always encouraged me to come to him with that. So that was fun. And I don't know if this is where you're going with this, but I recently worked with him again on the Picard story for a Star Trek project.
Oh, okay.
And we hadn't worked together in, this makes me feel old when I say things like this, 15 years or so. It had been a while since we worked together, so it was kind of fun. And it was specifically done for the 20th anniversary of IDW. So they were getting the old band back together for that. And
sure.
And they were telling a story 20 years in Picard's past. So that's how it all fit in. It was a lot of fun. I got to draw Picard with hair.
Always fun to do.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I just started looking over your body of work here just to kind of make sure I had my frame of reference. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, oh my God, that book is 10 years old now? And I just feels like I just went down to the comic shop and got it. And
yeah,
it's just amazing that they've been around so long and they've got a good formula.
Yeah. I think I started doing Star Trek in around 2006. When I think about it, that's 13 years ago. And yeah, I look back at, I think, I don't know if you're referring to anything specific, but the crossover I did, the Doctor Who crossover, I think that's like about 10 years old now.
Yeah, it's one of the things I saw, and
yeah, I know, and it feels like I just did it too, and that was the first time I started working with the Tiptons was with that crossover, and we've been working together ever since to great success. I liked.
Sure. Well, I mean, now that you've spent that much time with IDW, I want to go back to the rock thing for a minute. Do you see yourself as being like a David Bowie where you now have phases in your work?
It's funny you mentioned David Bowie because that's probably my biggest influence outside of artists. And it was because he would always reinvent himself. It's a little harder to do that in comic books because I tried to change mediums with which I worked several times, and the editors always resisted that idea because if something works, you don't mess with it. Mm-hmm. But if you look at a book I did specifically, it was a Klingon book, and Klingons, from being on the cruise, are my favorite. I did a book called 4,000 Throats. I believe the writer was Keith the Candido. And there were 4 separate parts of the story. It was a single-issue story, but there were 4 separate parts. And it was Kang telling his life story from before TOS to that episode of Deep Space Nine, where he's going after the albino. And he was telling stories, Klingon stories. Some of them he wasn't in, but from specific different eras. One was medieval times, like 1,000 years after Kalis. One of them was the original series. anyways, for every specific story, I change my art style. And this is something I like to do, and I haven't been able to do, so it was kind of a good example if you want to see something that isn't the same painted stuff I always do. Check out that issue. It's called 4,000 Throats. I did for the TOS, I did sort of a cartoony style, which was sort of a tip of the hat to the animated series, which I'm a huge fan of. So I wanted to draw, and not specifically that style, because I wasn't sure IDW had the rights at the time, but I did something reminiscent of it. I did a much more classic painted style for things like the Age of Kalis one I was talking about, and I did sort of a middle style for a story that took place around the time, I think it was Enterprise C story, so it was around that time.
Awesome. But now, to me, the animated series does not get enough love. It really doesn't. That was my introduction to the Trek, and if that is the most subpar Trek there is, well, Trek is a huge part of my life today as a result of it, so it can't be that bad.
And they weren't that bad. Some of those stories were incredible. They were better than some TOS stories. I mean, yes. TOS was always hit or miss. These stories were every bit as good. I think most of them were even better. And it could include a little more far-out stuff, and I think that's why people tend to not take it seriously. In the animation, okay, let's be honest, wasn't great. Right. And it was always the same repeated stuff they used, and it was Filmation, right? I think
right.
Yeah, so there was a tradition of that. If you look at the old 67 Spider-Mans and things like that, of older animation using the same shots over and over again, so they didn't have to draw new cells, and that was a way to come in on budget. Mm-hmm. So you can't fault it for that. No. I mean, it would be nice to see another animated series, done with, now that we can do tweening with the computers and it's not all hand-drawn cell animation, you could probably come in under budget and do some really great stuff. But I don't think we'll ever see that. Maybe next gen. I mean, I know there's a new animated series coming out, and there's one for children and one for adults. And one is with CBS and one's Nickelodeon, I think. And I'm really excited to see those.
I believe so.
Yeah. I'm really...
Yeah, it's going to be like being 5 years old again.
Yeah. I actually pitched an idea for IDW that never got done. Maybe it will one day, hopefully. Everybody write letters. It was The Next Generation, the animated series. We wanted to create, and I was going to work with who was I going to work with? One of the writers, I don't remember. It's so long ago. But what we're going to do is we're going to handle it like it was going to happen instead of the movies. So after the last episode, they planned to go directly to a animated series, which of course didn't happen. But so we wanted it to be like we found some archives from the 90s and make it as real as it would have been if they had done that. And that was the pitch, and we were going to include just little things like inter-office memos that didn't really exist about Patrick Stewart or something, saying how he saw this going and that kind of thing. Maybe one day, because that's what I would love to do, and I would love to do the same thing where you add an alien character and put him on the bridge, put him at Ops or something.
Maybe get a little note from Playmates as to the types of toys they're trying to knock out for that show.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. We really wanted to get in the spirit of this. Hopefully it'll happen one day, because one of the aliens I wanted to put on the bridge was a Dai, which is a character the Tiptons and I created for the crossover. And they're like little fish people, and I thought that would be kind of cool. One day. But yes, the animated series, I would love an animated universe again. I love the idea of it, and I hope Star Trek continues in that tradition.
It's a universe of possibilities. It's a mistake to say we have to have a Star Trek that is exactly like this, and that is a vision we had in the mid-90s, which we cannot deviate from.
Yeah, well, that's ridiculous. I mean, there was... To say that is to say we couldn't have the one in the 90s, because that deviated from the 60s. I've heard of a lot of what we're hearing about Discovery, a lot of the resistance from some people sounds very familiar. I heard it in 1978 or 1979 when the motion picture came out. People were outraged about the Klingons having bumps on their heads. It was the same argument. The Klingons don't look right. I mean, and I've heard it before, and I heard a lot of complaints about The Next Generation, and there was a lot of resistance to that at first from people that were traditionalists from the 60s. So, and it'll keep happening. It'll keep adjusting. The reason it survives is it adjusts to the storytelling techniques of its time. So if they're going to do something in the year 2050, they're going to do it in whatever style we're watching in 2050, and the old-timers just got to get used to it. Time marches on. But it is, in its core, Star Trek. I mean,
yes.
It always has been. It hasn't changed. It's just superficial changes, you know?
Indeed. Now, for example, I figured out a while back that Star Trek has been around, as you say, for over 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
It has made an obscene amount of money. The people in charge of it wish to keep making obscene amounts of money. They're not going to let it turn to garbage. Have a little confidence there.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, you can't make anything good by trying to please all of the fans. That'll never happen. So there's always going to be people that are at first. But, you know, we don't watch Star Trek because we want it to be our story. We watch it because we don't know what's going to happen. You know, we are spectators.
Yeah.
You know, as a fan, I am a spectator. It's great to be able to play in it, but I'll be honest, I have more fun watching it, not knowing what's going to happen. One of the downsides of working on Discovery before it came out is I got the script ahead of time. I had to sign an NDA. I knew what was coming. It's not as fun. You know, and controlling it is even less fun. I mean, it's fun in a different way while you're doing it, but you really don't want control of Star Trek. You want to sit down and go, oh, what's going to happen?
Mm-hmm.
And as somebody who's been on both sides, I'll tell you, it's more fun that way.
Indeed, true. I mean, when Generations came out, I mean, I picked up every magazine with it on the cover. I didn't have the internet yet, but I was having conversations with people. I was trying to get as much detail as I could.
Oh, yeah.
When First Contact came out, I went on a total media blackout. Which movie do you think I enjoyed more?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's exactly it. You can be your own worst enemy sometimes as a fan. Because you do. You're supposed to. I mean, this isn't a criticism. You're supposed to get obsessed with it. I mean, that's where fan comes from, fanatic, and I do get obsessed with it. But you got to learn to put the reins on yourself sometimes so you can actually enjoy it, because you'll ruin it for yourself. Especially if you have like a rigid idea of what it's supposed to be. The fundamentals are always there. I promise you that. But if you have a very rigid idea of what the storytelling style is supposed to be, what the aesthetic is supposed to be, you're going to kill it for yourself. You know.
True.
Whereas if you sit back and enjoy the ride, you're going to love it. And Star Trek is still Star Trek. Yeah.
You're getting really jazzed out about this, and I love watching this. Because, you know, when I go back and I look at old Star Trek comics from DC and Marvel, and I look at the artists that worked on them, and in a lot of cases it seems like that their work on the Star Trek comic was just a quick stop on their way to another title that they became better known for.
Yeah, it was either a stepping stone or, I don't know, a punishment or something. Like, nobody seemed excited to work on it too much, because you always saw it in the work. Even artists I had known that were on Star Trek, it wasn't their best work.
Right.
Yeah, it was always the kind of unwanted stepchild of the comic book industry. If you're at DC and Star Trek's at DC, you'd rather be doing Batman. You know, and it's same with Marvel. You'd rather be on Spider-Man or X-Men, not Star Trek. But when it's at a company like IDW, you go there because you like Star Trek. You know, so we're getting talent now that wants to do Star Trek. And I think it makes a huge difference. And it's not like we haven't had that before. There was a little bit of that in the 90s with Malibu, where you got artists and writers that really wanted to be on Star Trek, but never quite like this. So
no,
yeah, it's for, you know, and I know it's not the most important to Star Trek fans. The comics is probably the bottom rung, but it's the best time for Star Trek comics that there's ever been.
Mm-hmm, by a good margin.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's not to disparage those artists, because some really great artists did work on the Star Trek.
I have the whole Marvel collection right here. I got the whole DC collection. Yeah, I don't hate it. I'm just saying I feel like there's a lot more enthusiasm now than there was.
But I'm sitting here talking to you right now, and it's like, okay, this is why it works this time around. Okay, I get it.
Yeah, you can see, I don't know if you can see it from here, but I got a whole shelf of Star Trek comics.
I kind of see it there, yeah. I don't know if you can tell behind me here, I have a print of the planet Bajor against my wall.
Oh, nice.
Yes. Very talented
cool.
artist by the name of Brandon Berg. You should definitely look him up if you don't know him already.
Yeah, all right. Cool. Yeah, I couldn't tell what that was, but I was curious.
Okay, so what's your next plan down the road? What are you working on at this point?
Well, we can finally announce it.
Okay.
Depending on how this airs. We made, I'll speak in past tense, we made an announcement at San Diego Comic-Con last week. Mirror Universe Voyager. We're doing a single issue of Mirror Universe Voyager, which I'm excited for several reasons. Let me outline this for you. First of all, one of the first commissions I did at a Comic-Con after Mirror Broken that got me really excited was somebody just gave me collage and wanted me to design Mirror Voyager characters. And while I'm doing it, I'm coming up with these stories, because that's what you do when you draw stuff. And I'm thinking, now I got to bring this to the Tiptons, which we did. That pitch didn't go through, but it came from like 3 years ago, I guess, at this point. 3 year ago commission. Then I find out we're going to be doing one. It's going to be a single issue. It's going to be a Halloween special. It's coming out in October. And they liked the designs I already had. So I changed very little on that. Now the backstories of the characters changed, and unfortunately I won't be working with the Tiptons. I'll have to get you the writer's name. It's somebody I haven't worked with before, but I've seen the outline, and I love where the story's going. So once again, I'm really charged up about the Mirror Universe. The third reason I'm really excited is this year on the cruise, I'm a guest on the cruise again, and this year it's a Voyager cast. I don't know if you heard about the guests they're having on the cruise.
No. I mean, I have heard, yes.
There was always a couple Voyager casts, but now they have pretty much the whole cast, I think, with the exception of a couple. So it's going to be a Voyager cruise, pretty much. And awesome. This will be like 3 months after this book, or 4 months after this book comes out. So it'll be really exciting to see, because I always meet these people. I dine with them 3 times a day. It'll be interesting to see what they thought of their characters. And if they haven't seen the book, I'll have one with me. And I'm like, yeah, look, Tuvok, look. So yeah, I'm very excited about that. And it was just announced, and I'll just now be starting. It has to be done by the end of August. So I'm going to be working pretty hard day and night on it.
Totally understandable, totally understandable. And now...
I think I could show you the cover since this is video, if you want to see.
Okay.
I have it right here. See if it comes up. Tell me how far back I have to go.
Oh, that is...
This is the original cover. And I'll send you a file of the high-res so you can edit it in if you'd like. But...
Sure, I would love to do that.
Okay, so I'll get you the file, but just for now, this is what we got. This is the original. And I haven't decided what charity that I want to donate it to yet, but I usually, with covers, if I don't sell them, I auction them or raffle them for a charity. So figure that out, and I will announce that in Las Vegas. So if you like this cover, anybody who's watching, and you're in Las Vegas for the big con, I'll announce then how you can get it. Usually I like to do raffles, because when you do raffles, anybody can afford it. You can buy a chance, whereas not everybody has... $1,500 or $2,000 for a piece of art. So, but yeah, you saw the characters. If you have any questions, I probably answer some of them, but this is really still in flux. So
yeah, and see, there's a whole bunch of possibilities the writer in me is running through right now, and I don't know if you could answer any of them.
You probably get a lot of I can't say just yet, anyways. Mm-hmm. So, but
fair enough.
I think Mirror Voyager is exciting enough because a lot of people were asking about it after Mirror TNG, because that's the one we haven't done yet.
All right, sure.
I think it's the only one we haven't done yet. All the other series had Mirror Universe stories now that after Mirror Broken. Mm-hmm. So Voyager.
I mean, I'm just thinking, from the perspective of somehow Mirror Voyager gets to the Delta Quadrant, and they have no competition, so they can kind of run amok there.
Oh yeah, they can do some damage. I mean, my theory, and it was never written into the story of Mirror Broken, but my theory about the Borg was they were decimated by the Mirror Universe. I mean, not at first, but eventually, because the only reason the Borg are still around was because of a moral limitation, as they would look at it in the Mirror Universe. And they wouldn't have that in the Mirror Universe. They'd have no problem using Hue. or a computer virus, or whatever nefarious means they use to destroy the Borg. They would have gotten that done. So there is no Borg in the Mirror Universe in my mind. Now, that's never been written into canon, so that could change. But for my idea for Mirror Voyager, which we didn't use, or I came up with it with the Tiptons, the original pitch, was it was going to start with a fight with the Enterprise. That they weren't in the Delta Quadrant at first. They were renegades fighting the Empire. Because the Empire used to be ruled under Spock, and it used to have some moral guidance. You know, it was going in that direction, but then it got taken over again, and then got weakened. The idea on Deep Space Nine that the Mirror Universe was weakened by morality never sit well with me. I never liked the idea that the Reformer destroyed it. I like the idea that somebody came back, took it over, fought too many wars on too many fronts, and destroyed it that way. And so my idea was that these guys on Voyager were the renegades, and they were fighting. And that way we could keep a half Klingon and a Vulcan and alien species aboard, where you can't normally do that too much in the Terran universe because they're all racist.
Right.
You know, so yeah, that was the original idea. Is they were pirates fighting the Empire, and then they got thrown into the Delta Quadrant. Now we're not going with that. We're going with something else that I can't talk about, but that was the original idea.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing what you do come up with for sure.
Oh, thanks.
Well, I'm going to let you go and wrap this up while we're ahead here. But if somebody wants to follow your work and they don't have a comic shop nearby, can they check you out on the internet at all?
Sure. I'm on Instagram, JK_Woodward. Twitter, JK_Woodward. I have an art of James Kenneth Woodward on Facebook, or JK Woodward, I don't remember which, but you'll see it.
Sure.
And I occasionally do a podcast that I don't do as often anymore, which is called Go Trek Yourself.
Okay, well, all of that is going to make it into the show notes, and I'm going to make sure to give shout-outs to all of those, that podcast and those counts, so hopefully we can get some more people heading in your direction.
There we go. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for doing this. Take good care.
You bet.